Good evening. I'm Zinklea Samwa, coming to you from NBC News World Headquarters in New York City. Here are some of the stories we're following on Now Tonight. New developments in the tragic mass shooting in California over the weekend. It appears the person behind the massacre may have been targeting his ex-wife. And as the number of victims rise, the White House is keeping close.
Our team continues to be in regular contact with law enforcement officials leading the response, and the president has been briefed today on the latest developments.
Speaking of the president, more classified material has been found in his Delaware home, and members of his own party are not happy about it.
To be held accountable and responsible is what we all are, and to put those in unsecured spaces is irresponsible.
And remember the Capitol Hill rioter who put his feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk? Well, he could spend the rest of his life in prison, according to his own attorney. And mark your calendar, COVID vaccines may soon be administered once a year like flu shots. We'll hear what health experts are saying about this medical development. And in an NBC News exclusive, a top Border Patrol official is now out of a job after allegations that he pressured women he worked with for sex. We begin tonight in Monterey Park. An 11th person has now died as a result of that mass shooting in Los Angeles suburb on Saturday. That person died at a hospital today. At least 9 more people remain wounded, and we've also learned more about the potential motive for the attack. The suspected shooter, 72-year-old Hu Con Tran, opened fire inside a crowded dance studio. Monterey Park Mayor Henry Lowe tells NBC News, quote, "My understanding is that he may have come because his ex-wife was reveling, celebrating the Lunar New Year, and it sounded like there was a history of domestic violence." Minutes after opening fire at that dance hall in Monterey Park, the suspect arrived at another dance hall a short distance away. There, he tried to carry out a second attack. Brandon Shea is the 26-year-old operator of that spot. That man is now being called a hero after wrestling the gun out of the suspect's hand. You can see it on your screen now, forcing him to flee. He spoke to our Lester Holt about that moment.
Did he say anything to you?
No, that was the scary part. When he came in, he said nothing. His face was very stoic. The expressions were mostly in his eyes, looking around, trying to find people, trying to scout the area for other people.
So how did you decide what to do?
Well, there was a moment I actually froze up because I had the belief that I was going to die. Like, my life was ending here at that very moment. But something amazing happened, a miracle actually. He started to try to prep his weapons so he could shoot everybody. But then it dawned on me that this was the moment to disarm him. I could do something here that could protect everybody and potentially save myself.
Incredible words, incredible actions. And today, officials publicly identified 3 of the victims: 65-year-old May Nan, 63-year-old Lillian Lee, and 68-year-old Valentino Alvaro. About 12 hours after the shooting, officials say the suspect died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound inside a van that had been closed in on by a police SWAT team. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson joins me now from Monterey Park to dig in. Steve, what's the latest on this investigation, and what do we know about authorities' assertions of a personal motive here regarding the shooter's ex-wife?
Well, we know that there are personal connections from the suspect to this community, that this suspect had deep relationships in this community. And part of the reason why we know that is, that, as you mentioned, you played there the mayor confirming that there was a relationship, that the ex-wife had made statements about the suspected shooter. In fact, we had heard from the ex-wife making statements to the press earlier on today, talking about the fact that they met here 20 years ago, that he was something of an informal dance instructor at this ballroom. So the personal connection, obvious. On top of that, you know, this is a 72-year-old known to the community. So our NBC News Investigates team has done some more digging, including finding that, according to the evidence that has been gathered both at the scene and at certain places that the shooter had traveled, suggesting that this is not a hate crime, that this is not something of a domestic terrorism incident, that this is, you know, for whatever it is, a personal connection. Now, Sheriff's Department is not confirming that connection. They are not making that link at this time. This is the source. This is the focus of their investigation. But you're starting to see some of the connective tissue, including in a Sheriff's Department presser that was not too long ago, maybe an hour ago or so, where a lot of information had come out. First of all, what we don't hear, what we haven't heard from that wellspring of information is making that connection to being able to say that this is the motive. So this is still the thing that is going to be under investigation, presumably, for the next few days. What we did hear primarily comes from a search warrant that was executed at the shooter's home, which is in Hemet, California, not too far from here. They recovered a rifle. They recovered a computer. They recovered materials, and this is harrowing to hear, that suggested that the shooter, the suspected shooter, was making homemade suppressors, firearm suppressors. Haunting to hear information like that. An untold number of rounds also in containers inside the shooter's house. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds of rounds. On top of that, they also announced that there was a separate gun inside the van where the suspected shooter was trapped, and that they found 42 rounds at the ballroom behind me here in Monterey Park, suggesting the shooter took 42 shots. Just harrowing to hear all of this information coming out. But again, authorities no closer to naming that motive until they make these connective links again to the community. That is the source of what they will be investigating for the next few days and weeks. Sinclair?
Well, Steve, I rightly heard you describe this as haunting, and it truly is, so thank you for that. And we are less than a month into 2023, and the Monterey Park shooting was this year's 33rd mass shooting. 33rd. And according to the Gun Violence Archive, 4 more mass shootings have taken place in other parts of the U.S. just since Saturday. So that's a total of 37 mass shootings in just 23 days. The Gun Violence Archive defines a mass shooting as 4 or more shot or killed, not including the shooter. All of this is bringing up conversations about gun safety and stricter gun laws. Remember, the shooter's weapon was actually illegal in the state of California. Here's Democratic Senator Alex Padilla of California earlier today.
Many of my colleagues have pointed out, doesn't California have some of the strictest laws and protections of any state in the nation? That is true. And they have worked, and it is helpful. But when there's a patchwork of laws and protections to various degrees across states, then clearly there are vulnerabilities that can impact any community in the country.
Maya Levis Porter is a gun violence survivor and a gun violence prevention activist with Moms Demand Action from LA. She joins us right now. Thank you so much for joining us. I know events like this can be really triggering for gun violence survivors, and you're an advocate in this space. And we just heard it, right? California does have some of the strongest gun laws in the nation, right? Mandatory waiting periods, background checks, banning of military-style assault weapons, red flag laws, a patchwork. But strict gun laws, nonetheless, even still, this shooting happened there on Saturday in California, in a state with all of these laws. So a question a lot of people are asking is, are laws on a state level capable of preventing such shootings like this when we don't have widespread national gun reforms?
They are, and I am very proud to be living in California with the strictest gun laws, but we are only as strong as the weakest gun laws of our neighbors, which is why it is so imperative to have federal gun safety legislation, because actually it's very common. It happened with Gilroy, where there was a gun trade show in Nevada, and then the following week was the Gilroy Garlic shooting. And it's the same thing in this case, where last weekend in Vegas, there was a gun trade show, and weapons similar to what the shooter in this case obtained, you could purchase it at that gun trade show.
I mean, I'm mindful that a new Congress is currently in session. What kind of national laws would you like to see on the table right now? And do you see that practically happening with a Republican-controlled Senate, or House?
Well, I mean, I've advocated for years as a survivor of gun violence for strengthening for re-implementing the assault weapons ban, for background checks on all gun sales, and that's the thing. This is a uniquely American issue, and we all are invested and impacted by this, and so we do need both sides of the aisle to understand that we just need to hold the gun lobby accountable. Industries left and right are held accountable, whether it's cigarettes. When, right now the gun lobby is designing guns for weapons of war for children. They're marketing it, and that's on them. Their responsibility, that all they care about is making profits rather than the safety of American lives.
And I'm glad you're talking about American lives, right? Because I think we rightly talk about the policy that's necessary here, but it's also ultimately about the people. You talked about it. You are a gun violence survivor yourself. Based on your experience, how do you see the community healing from this? Specifically, though, the AAPI community, given who was targeted and when this happened, Lunar New Year, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I know that, when the news first came out, most had an inclination to think that this was a hate crime because of what's been happening, the rhetoric over the past few years of anti-Asian hate and the increase in hate crimes. But again, for me, especially as a survivor, it comes down to this, that when you combine a weapon of destruction, especially a weapon of war, with hate, with depression, with anger, with isolation, it only increases the outcome, the likelihood that the outcome will be fatal. And so we do, as a community, need to demand more nationally of our electeds to make sure that we have safer gun laws on the books, because, we shouldn't, as Americans, have to be catering to the gun lobby. We have a right, and it should be protected, our right for security and for safety, and to feel safe going into a dance class or into a church or walking down the street or into our schools. When it comes to the bottom line, our government needs to ensure that our safety is intact, and that is holding the gun lobby accountable.
Well, thank you for sharing your perspectives with us, Mia Porter. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if you're unfamiliar with Monterey Park, you should know it's actually considered to be the country's first Asian majority suburb. Now, unfortunately, it's also going to be known for something else, too. Another community, like others in America, struck by mass gun violence. A recent piece in the Washington Post points out that even though Monterey Park is more removed from, quote, Los Angeles County's more violent neighborhoods, Monterey Park is just as vulnerable to gun violence in a state, California, that has tried more than most to corral it. Reese Tebow is the co-author of that piece, and he joins me now to talk about this. Reese, thank you so much for being here. I want us to spend some time focusing on the impacted community. You wrote that Monterey Park became the nation's first Asian majority city some decades ago. So tell us a little bit about the community there and how it came to be.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you for having me. Monterey Park is a city of about 60,000 people, and it's a place where 2 in 3 residents identify as Asian, and it's been that way for quite some time. It began in the 60s, 70s, and 80s with migration from Taiwan, Hong Kong, and mainland China, and now it's a place that people from a range of Asian countries call home. And in interview after interview, residents described it as a safe haven for them, a place where either they themselves or their parents came looking for somewhere where they can, live with other people from their home countries and preserve their cultures and language.
And I mean, it's not lost on me, you're talking about culture and language, that the Lunar New Year is a major day of celebration. How big were the celebrations on Saturday when this shooting happened?
Yeah, the Lunar New Year is the biggest event on Monterey Park's calendar. I was there on Saturday. I live in Los Angeles, and I went to the festival to, enjoy the food and buy Lunar New Year decorations, just like thousands of other people. And it was a really joyous atmosphere there. There were a ton of people packed in the streets, standing in line for dumplings and kids playing on carnival rides. There was a real sense of relief and of hope. This was the first event, the first Lunar New Year celebration since the pandemic shut it down for 2 straight years. And so, there was a real sense of joy at being able to come together again after all that time. And just a few hours later, the mood was just a total 180.
Yeah, and I mean, Reese, you're describing the celebrations, and it's not lost on me. We just talked about it with Mia, that the AAPI community, Asian and Pacific Islander, has endured a lot in the last 3 years. The pandemic, we saw the rise of anti-Asian hate, and now, we've been celebrating Lunar New Year. I was celebrating also, and it was the first time in person for many people, right? And yet now this tragedy, what are you hearing from people on the ground? How are people coping?
Yeah, you're right. It's impossible to ignore the context. This is happening at a time of rising reports of anti-Asian violence and more hate crimes reported than we've seen in quite some time. And, people here say they're afraid now. The timing of the shooting, I think, really terrified residents of Monterey Park, many of whom told me, they felt like this was the safest place in America for them. And, now they're just not so sure.
A safe place disrupted. Reese Tebow, thank you for sharing your reporting and insights.
Thanks for having me.
Now, let's turn to politics and the special counsel's investigation into President Biden's mishandling of classified documents. Earlier today, NBC News obtained a letter sent from the White House counsel to the House Oversight Committee. The White House claims it will cooperate with, quote, legitimate oversight, but the White House counsel also suggested there could be a limit to what the White House is willing to share. This comes as the scope of the investigation continues to expand. Over the weekend, an additional 6 classified items were found at President Biden's private home in Wilmington, Delaware. NBC's Mike Memoli has more.
Hi there, Zinkley. Yeah, we have even more questions, but few answers from the White House on Monday. In the wake of this stunning disclosure that FBI officials spent more than 12 hours searching President Biden's personal home in Wilmington, Delaware on Friday, all in connection to their probe of his handling of classified documents. Now, in a statement we received from the president's personal attorney on Saturday, he revealed that the Justice Department completed a thorough search of all the materials in Biden's Wilmington home, that the DOJ had full access to his home, including handwritten notes, files, papers, binders, memorabilia, to-do lists. Really an incredible laundry list of items here. Ultimately, though, the Justice Department officials took into their possession just 6 items, according to the president's lawyer, consisting of documents with classified markings, some of which were from the president's service in the Senate. Now, that's significant because up until now, we've only understood that this search related to documents that the president took with him after leaving office as vice president in 2017. Now, Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, referring many questions today to a spokesperson for the White House counsel's office. And I want to play for you this exchange that spokesperson, Ian Sams, had with our colleagues at Morning Joe, which speaks just to the level of frustration over the White House's inability to answer some of these questions. Take a listen.
A lot of people are asking, how could this happen? And that's the answer that we're stuck on. There's no answer being provided.
Well, again, I'm going to stress this again, and I understand that there's a desire for public disclosure of information, that there's a desire for facts to come out, but it's important that the full set of facts be gathered by the Justice Department and then presented publicly so that people can understand all of these details.
Now, Zinkley, it's important to note these questions are not just coming from us reporters. Some members of the president's own party are raising questions about how the president is handling this. Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia saying that he thinks the president needs to show more contrition. This after Biden himself said he had no regrets about how he's handled this. Even more notable is the fact that Senator Dick Durbin, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, a longtime ally of this president, called it unacceptable, some of the revelations coming about this. Ian Sams, that same White House spokesperson, saying that in response to these comments that all of these Democrats understand that the president is acting responsibly, and again comparing how the president is handling this investigation to what we've seen from former President Donald Trump. But obviously many more questions to come, including whether this search will now extend to some of the president's other properties, including his home in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, where Biden spent the most recent weekend. Zinkley?
Many more questions and hopefully more answers from the White House. Mike Memoli, thank you so much. Now let's stay at the White House for a minute, where a big shakeup is allegedly imminent. According to 2 sources familiar with the decision, Ron Klain is set to leave his post as White House Chief of Staff sometime after the State of the Union address on February 7th. He has served in the top role for more than 2 years and was a key advisor to Biden during the 2020 campaign, too. His departure comes as the White House looks ahead to the 2024 election. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell has more. Kelly?
Good evening, Zinkley. This is the kind of change that makes a very big difference inside the White House among the people who work for the president, but it may not be as visible to Americans who are watching the events that transpire here. Ron Klain has been one of President Biden's most loyal friends and trusted aides over many years, and he's been in this 24/7 job since day one. And it is no surprise that his expected departure is coming. That's been sort of telegraphed for a while now, and NBC News reporting is that that'll come in the next few weeks. At the White House briefing today, because this has been out there, Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about this, and she made the point of saying, oh, he's still on the job right now. But she also took time to praise Ron Klain, to talk about his influence in the White House, how he has been a big part of the legislative successes as the White House sees them, and keeping the team together. So that kind of praise is often something that happens when someone is winding down. Now, Ron Klain is expected to work with the president's allies and friends on the outside in the days ahead. Think about the 2024 campaign that is expected to come should the president follow through and announce plans to run again. And here at the White House, what we expect to see is that a man named Jeff Zients, a name you may have heard before, that he will be stepping into the big role. He worked as the COVID response coordinator in the early days of this administration, and he would be working as the chief of staff, which is the top job on the inside of the White House, running a lot of the day-to-day operations. It's a pivotal role, a trusted role, and one with really unending pressure. So it's not unusual to see changes at about the midway point, and that's where we are in the Biden timeline. So we expect Ron Klain to move on and Jeff Zients to come in. Zinkley?
Kelly O'Donnell in Washington, D.C., thank you so much. And still to come, money laundering and violating sanctions against Russia. Those are just some of the charges against a former FBI official. That story is coming your way next. Now, tonight is just getting started. A former high-level FBI official is accused of taking secret cash payments and working for the same Russian oligarch he was supposed to be investigating. Federal prosecutors say Charles McGonigal took $225,000 in cash from a person who worked for a foreign intelligence service. This happened while he worked at the FBI's counterintelligence office in New York. In a separate case, the feds say he also took secret payments from that Russian oligarch, conspiring to get him taken off a U.S. sanctions list. In a statement to NBC News, his lawyer says clients pleading not guilty, and they look forward to seeing the evidence against him. NBC News Justice and Intelligence Correspondent Ken Delanian joins me now to talk about this. So, Ken, what more do we know about what is going on with this case?
Yeah, this is a really shocking case, Zinkley. Charles McGonigal was the top counterintelligence official in the FBI's New York City division. So his job was to protect the United States from improper foreign influence. And these two indictments charge him with essentially profiting from foreign influence, both while he was an FBI agent and then after he left the bureau. So the indictment out of Washington, D.C. accuses him of accepting $225,000 from an Albanian businessman who was a former Albanian intelligence official, and going on trips with this person and helping him do business abroad and linking him up with the FBI. What the indictment calls a hidden illegal conflict of interest that he didn't declare on the forms that he was supposed to declare any foreign entanglements and any outside income. And then secondly, a separate case out of the Southern District of New York accuses him of, after retiring from the FBI, going to work for this sanctioned Russian oligarch, Oleg Deripaska, who has close ties to Vladimir Putin, and trying to help him evade U.S. sanctions and do some other business, very lucrative engagement. So my sources inside the national security establishment see this as an absolute betrayal. McGonigal today pleaded not guilty and was released on $500,000 bond.
And Ken, I mean, it feels like the big question here is there any indication that the FBI's counterintelligence activity may have been compromised because of this? And exactly how high was he in the chain?
So he was a well-known figure inside the FBI. He'd worked there for more than 2 decades. He led the WikiLeaks task force, for example, which investigated that leak, and he had very senior positions. And the question you asked is a great one, not really answered in these court documents, but it's very often the case that in cases like these, the Justice Department will not say everything it knows. So it's kind of an unanswered question, just how compromised was anything that he touched at the FBI. But it's never a good thing. This is essentially allegations allegations of corruption. So we don't know what else he was doing that wasn't proper. We just know what they've charged in these cases.
Definitely a case we're watching closely. Ken Delanian, thank you.
You bet.
And after the break, more of the top stories we're following this hour, including the push for tanks in Ukraine, how Poland is now looking to help. Plus, the verdict for the January 6th rioter who put his feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk. And a possible update for the COVID vaccine. We'll tell you about some changes the FDA is now proposing. That's all just ahead. Stay close. It's time now for some of the big headlines we're watching on Now Tonight. The January 6th rioter who put his feet on then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's desk was found guilty on all counts today. Richard Barnett faced 8 charges from the insurrection, including theft of government property. He said he regrets his actions, but maintains he did not think he broke the law. Barnett's sentencing is scheduled for May. 6% of Spotify's global workforce is getting cut, about 600 people. That's according to an internal memo sent to staff today. The company's CEO said he was too ambitious, investing ahead of their revenue growth. 2 students were shot and killed today at an Iowa charter school for underserved youths. 1 employee was also wounded and is now in stable condition. Police say it was a targeted attack. 3 suspects who fled the scene are now in custody. Elon Musk spoke to jurors again today in a Tesla investor lawsuit. The trial is centered around a 2018 tweet that Musk had lined up financing to take the company private. Today, Musk said he believed he did have funding from a Saudi Arabian investment fund. Tesla investors argue the tweet caused shares to rise and then fall. And Buffalo Bills' Damar Hamlin cheered on his teammates, this time in person. He was seen at the Bills Stadium rallying thousands of fans at their playoff game against Cincinnati, the very same team the Bills played 3 weeks ago when Hamlin collapsed on the field. Though Cincinnati won 27-10, Hamlin told fans they'll be back. Now, let's head to South Carolina. I want you to take a look at this picture. It might seem like a picture-perfect family. The father, Alex Murdaugh, was a prominent lawyer who hailed from a well-known family of prominent lawyers. But now he is facing 2 charges of murder for the deaths of his wife and his youngest son. And the trial begins today with jury selection. NBC's Katie Beck has more.
Here in the small town of Walterboro, South Carolina, 900 potential jurors are being screened to potentially decide the fate of former prominent attorney Alex Murdaugh. They have been asked questions about how much they know about this case and if they have any connection to the Murdaugh family. In a community this small, it's hard to find any juror that doesn't know about the story or doesn't have a potential tie. The important question today is, could jurors put that aside and impartially decide this case? While they are being vetted inside, outside the courthouse, a media frenzy. Tents, trucks, and cameras on every corner of the courthouse awaiting every detail of this case. We are told this process of choosing jurors could take another day or 2 before heading into motions of evidence on what will get allowed into the trial. In the meantime, legal experts saying the case is largely circumstantial against Alex Murdaugh, and the sides will be carefully preparing how they present this case to the jury because credibility will be a factor. Legal experts say while jury selection isn't always the most entertaining part of a trial, it's often the most important.
Everybody says, well, we want jurors that don't know anything about this case.
That's impossible.
It's impossible, and you also don't want jurors that live under a rock, okay? You want thoughtful jurors.
Case experts say it could be another day or 2 before a jury is seated and then on to motions. They say the trial could last as long as 3 weeks. Back to you.
Thanks to Katie Beck for that report. Now turning overseas, Ukraine says it needs more tanks, and a bipartisan group of senators visiting Kyiv could not agree more.
The Congress just authorized a $45 billion aid package to help Ukraine expel the Russians. To achieve that goal, the Ukraine military needs tanks. I'm tired of the show surrounding who's going to send tanks and when they're going to send them.
Let me just say, I am totally in agreement with everything that my colleague, Senator Graham, has just said, particularly the part about the you-know-what show.
Poland is looking to send aid to Ukraine in the form of tanks, but it's a bit complicated. You see, these tanks, they're made in Germany, so Poland actually needs to get permission before sending them off. NBC News foreign correspondent Raf Sanchez is in Kharkiv with more.
Some signs of potential progress today on that question of getting battle tanks to Ukraine. The government of Poland has asked permission from Germany to send its stock of Leopard 2 tanks to the Ukrainians. Remember, the Leopard 2s are those German-made tanks, and because they are made in Germany, the German government needs to give permission before Poland and other countries can send them to Ukraine. The Polish government, though, saying even if Germany does not give that permission, they are planning to send those tanks anyway. The Germans right now signaling they will not stand in the way, but it could still be weeks before those Leopard 2s reach the front lines here in eastern Ukraine, where Ukrainian officials say they are so badly needed. There is a real sense of urgency here in Ukraine about getting these tanks into the field. Ukrainian intelligence indicates that Vladimir Putin's forces are regrouping for a potential fresh offensive, possibly starting in the next couple of weeks. A Ukrainian member of parliament told us today that every day NATO and the Western allies delay in sending these tanks is a day when Ukrainians are dying unnecessarily. Raf Sanchez, NBC News, Kharkiv, Ukraine.
Raf, thank you so much. Now, when it comes to the pandemic, over the past few years, we've seen a lot of changes with COVID vaccines, and it can be kind of hard to keep up.
This is what everybody has been waiting for, to be able to give the vaccine and to hopefully see this as the beginning of the end of the COVID issue.
Authorized by the FDA late today, booster shots for adults fully vaccinated with Moderna and Johnson & Johnson could be days away. It comes as the White House unveils its massive plan to begin vaccinating 28 million children.
As you can see, we've been through a lot and a lot of shots, but soon the FDA may simplify the schedule with, get this, just one shot. And like the flu vaccine, it would likely be updated every year for new strains. So far, the U.S. has gotten over 667 million shots in arms. But let's break down that number a bit, because the CDC says at least 8 in 10 Americans have had at least one COVID shot. But just under 70% actually did their two-shot primary series. And as for those updated boosters, well, that plummets to just 15% of Americans. So will a clearer booster schedule get more people vaccinated? Let's bring in NBC News medical contributor Dr. Uche Blackstock for some answers. She's also the founder and CEO of Advancing Health Equity. Thank you so much for being here, Uche. So we've had 2 doses, and those were followed by booster after booster. Now we're being told it could be just one shot. So what's the deal? Should we prepare for something like a yearly flu shot, but for COVID?
Well, Dinkley, thank you so much for having me. We'll see what the FDA advisory committee votes on this Thursday. But the thought is that they're trying to simplify everything for the American public. I think people are very confused. They want to increase those booster rates, as you just showed, they're quite low. And so they're saying, just like the flu shot, let's give an annual, annual COVID shot. And so the problem is, though, is that COVID is changing, mutating so quickly, more quickly than the flu shot does. So the question is whether or not are we going to be updating this flu shot more than a year? Are we going to need to do that and to update it on an emergent basis, as the FDA has said as well? And then also, COVID is has a higher mortality rate than the flu does as well. And so I know that, they're trying to increase these boost rates. The question is, will an annual COVID shot, will that help increase these booster rates? And that remains to be seen.
And I want to follow up on something you mentioned, right? The fact that this would be an evolving type of vaccine based on the variation that exists. How exactly does that work? How would that work for a COVID shot?
Right. Yeah. So right now, what we're seeing with the booster is that the booster has both the wild type, the original COVID strain, and the Omicron variant. So it has 2 strains in it, whereas the primary series only has the original strain in it. But as we're seeing, almost every few months or every year, we have a new coronavirus. And so fortunately, these mRNA strains can be tweaked and updated. But the question is, are we going to be running after every new strain and updating the booster? Or are we going to try to find more effective ways to vaccinate? So there are mucosal vaccines that can be given via the nose as opposed to an injection into the muscle. So that is a question. Those mucosal vaccines could actually be more efficacious than the shots that we are getting now and can also prevent infection. There's currently research going on in terms of those mucosal vaccines. So we will definitely have to see. I'm concerned that an annual vaccine that's just updated once a year may not be enough, and that we are just seeing coronaviruses mutate so incredibly quickly, more quickly than many other viruses out there, that we may not be able to catch up.
Yeah, there have been a lot of COVID variations, and I'm sure a lot of people who are averse to needles would be happy to hear about the potential nasal swab as an option. And I also want to ask you about immunocompromised people. Would they have that same protocol of one vaccine if that became the protocol?
Right. So good question. So what the FDA is saying, for people who are immunocompromised, young children and the elderly, they would actually get 2 doses instead of 1 dose. So they would get 2 doses a year instead of 1 dose, because we know their immune systems are not as robust as a general adult population. So they would need a bit more protection. And with that extra booster shot, that increases antibody levels, and that should hopefully correlate to some improved clinical outcomes like decreased hospitalization and death as well.
And Uche, as we're talking about outcomes, it's not lost on me that vaccine hesitancy has been a major issue with the pandemic. There are still a lot of Americans who have just never had a COVID shot, period. Not even a booster, not even a first or second dose.
Right.
Do you think those vaccine skeptics may be more inclined to get a solo shot versus a series of shots? And what's your message to them?
I think we'll have to see. The vaccines have been out for a few years. People have had their opportunity to get their vaccines if they have wanted one. I think there probably will be a small percentage of people who say, okay, fine, it's once a year, sure, I'll get it. But as we already actually see from the flu vaccine annual shot, it's less than 50% of the population actually gets a flu vaccine every year. So we're going to want those numbers to be much higher for the COVID vaccine. So that is my concern, that I don't know even if that annual shot will increase those those COVID numbers every year, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, and the big question I have to end on is, might this potential change mean that we're entering an endemic phase? What does our future with COVID look like?
Right. So I would just make sure the viewers understand endemic means that the virus is at a steady state, so at a steady level, and that we're not having these outbreaks and these surges. I don't think we're necessarily there yet. Hopefully, if we get enough immunity throughout the population, we will be there, but we're not there yet. We will be living with COVID. The question is, how pervasive will it be, and whether or not that we can really improve the research in terms of the vaccines. So we also want to prevent infection as well as disease and hospitalizations as well.
Absolutely. It's about keeping people healthy. Dr. Uche Blackstock, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, Ticketmaster can't seem to shake it off. Tomorrow on Capitol Hill, the president of Live Nation Entertainment, the parent company of Ticketmaster, will defend the company's handling of the Taylor Swift fiasco last year. Yes, there's still some bad blood in the lyrics of Taylor Swift. The Senate Judiciary Committee is holding a hearing about the company's failures and lack of market competition. And it's not the first time Ticketmaster's been in this position either. NBC's Hallie Jackson has the story.
The story starts in 1976 when Ticketmaster was founded.
Ticketmaster came in with the idea that we can handle volume. Let's try and re-innovate this space, especially with computerized systems.
Over the next decade, the company grew really fast, signing exclusive ticket distribution contracts with sports teams, artists, and venues. By 1991, Ticketmaster had gobbled up 7 of its biggest competitors, including the largest, Ticketron. That move gave Ticketmaster an estimated 90% of the market at the time.
The acquisition went through with very little regulatory oversight.
Ticketmaster's market domination taking center stage a few years later in 1994, when the band Pearl Jam filed a complaint with the Justice Department, accusing Ticketmaster of antitrust violations and too many ticket fees on people going to concerts.
It is this incestuous relationship and the lack of any national competition for Ticketmaster that has created the situation we're dealing with today.
But a year later, the DOJ dropped its investigation, saying only the department will continue to monitor competitive developments in the ticketing industry. Fast forward to 2010. Even with concerns from lawmakers, the DOJ cleared the way for Ticketmaster to merge with its competitor, concert promoter Live Nation.
The combination has the potential to create one company with a stranglehold on all segments of the concert business.
The deal was approved under a 10-year agreement with the Justice Department, the company agreeing not to retaliate against venues for using other competing ticketing companies. In 2019, there was a back and forth between the DOJ and the company, Live Nation Entertainment, about whether they violated the agreement. Both parties agreed to extend the terms for 5.5 years. At the time, the DOJ called it a significant enforcement action, fining the company $3 million. Its earnings that year altogether, $3 billion.
We have antitrust laws on the books. The courts and regulators have been quite relaxed in actually reading the laws that's written.
And now, after that recent ticket mess for Taylor Swift's Eras Tour, Live Nation Entertainment saying in part, they take its responsibilities under the antitrust laws seriously and does not engage in behaviors that could justify antitrust litigation.
Our thanks to Hallie Jackson for reporting. After the break, an NBC News exclusive. A former top Border Patrol official is facing allegations of sexual misconduct, including pressuring female employees for sex. Plus, skipping vital doses because of the cost. A look at the high price of insulin and the difficult choices some are forced to make. NBC News has exclusively learned why a top Border Patrol official resigned last year. In October, Tony Barker stepped down as an acting chief at the agency. 3 Homeland Security officials say it's because he pressured an employee to perform sexual favors. One woman said they had a consensual relationship, but when she tried to end it, he retaliated, threatening to tell people she illegally issued contracts if she didn't continue their sexual relationship. Once these allegations came to light, the sources said more women stepped forward with similar complaints. In a statement, Tony Barker said, the allegations that I pressured any woman for sexual favors or victimized them are entirely and unequivocally false. NBC News Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley joins us now for more on this exclusive report. Julia, this is really disturbing, first of all. So what can you tell us about the allegations as well as the women who stepped forward after he resigned?
Well, Zinkley, what we've learned is that Tony Barker very quietly and abruptly quit his job in mid-October of last year. And that was after one woman came forward to leadership at DHS saying that he had pressured her to perform sexual favors. As you mentioned, it was a consensual relationship that she tried to end, and this was a form of retaliation. Since then, a new investigation opened into Tony Barker by the Office of Professional Responsibility. That's an internal mechanism within DHS, a team that can investigate employees for misconduct. And during that investigation, multiple other women have come forward with similar accusations that they felt victimized by Barker. That's what we know so far, and the investigation continues.
Julia, how is Barker responding to these allegations?
Well, I received his statement. He sent this to me via text messages. He says that he denied the allegations that he had ever pressured women for sexual favors or victimized them. And he said that he's proud of his 21 years at Border Patrol. He is someone with a long career through several different administrations. He worked his way up to being about number 3 at Border Patrol. He was acting deputy director of all of the law enforcement operations by Border Patrol. As you know, Customs Border Protection is the largest law enforcement, federal law enforcement body in the nation. He was very high ranking. But I have been speaking to some of the women who don't feel comfortable sharing their names or even the details of their stories publicly. But they said that they disagree with Barker's statement that they were not victimized.
And Julia, as you said, this is a big agency. So how is Border Patrol handling these allegations of someone in power misusing their power?
Well, in their statement, Border Patrol or spokesperson for Customs and Border Protection said that Tony Barker is no longer an employee and that they really can't comment any further beyond that. Of course, when someone is under investigation, it's hard for them to really open up any of those details. And this will probably be one of those things that the agency really tries to keep quietly and held internally. But just after we published our reporting, the New York Times followed up with similar reporting. So it's getting more public. More people are knowing about this, which might put pressure on the agency to show how they handle this. CBP in the past has come under fire for not properly handling accusations of sexual misconduct, especially just by agents on the line. Now that one of their top officials has so publicly been named and for being alleged, sex violator, for someone who's pressured women into performing sexual favors, they may now be under more public pressure to show exactly how they will respond to this. He resigned, so it's not like he can now lose his job or face any kind of reprimands at work. But CBP and their Office of Professional Responsibility could turn this over to the Inspector General, or they could make a criminal referral. They do have these tools at their disposal.
So time will tell where we land. NBC's Julia Ainsley, thank you so much. Now, did you know over a century ago today, a boy received the first successful insulin injection? Before that discovery, type 1 diabetes was almost like a death sentence. Patients suffering would often only survive a few weeks or months after a diagnosis. Today, researchers say nationwide about 16% of diabetics skip insulin doses because of the cost. Patients with little or no health insurance can pay over $1,000 a month for the medication in some instances. Recently, legislators have celebrated the price cap on insulin, but many critics say it doesn't help enough people. Laura Marston has type 1 diabetes.
I have to pay for this or I die in about 2 days.
She was diagnosed as a teenager.
At 14 to all of a sudden be told you have to give yourself injections, and it's very overwhelming.
And cost has always been a concern.
My first vial was $25 and now the exact same vial is $300.
She's one of over 1,600,000 adults in the U.S. living with type 1 diabetes, an autoimmune disorder where a person's pancreas cannot make insulin. Insulin prices in the U.S. remain the highest in the world, on average costing $98.70, according to one study, prompting patients to make dangerous decisions. In 2021, nearly 1 in 5 adults in the U.S. either skipped, delayed, or used less insulin than was needed to save money, according to an Annals of Internal Medicine study based on a CDC survey authored by physician Dr. Adam Gaffney.
Not taking insulin can precipitate a medical emergency.
And the risks are higher for Black insulin users, more likely to ration insulin, according to the survey. Insurance coverage matters too.
Also, people with private and health insurance also had higher rates than those with, say, Medicaid or Medicare.
As of January 2023, insulin costs are capped at $35 for Medicare recipients due to the Inflation Reduction Act. But the price cap only applies to those with Medicare, excluding more than 21 million patients. Democrats initially proposed an insulin cap for people with private insurance, but that provision was removed in August 2022 by Senate Republicans. The bill's co-sponsor, Senator Tammy Baldwin, a Democrat, told NBC News in part, quote, "No one should go bankrupt just to get the medication they need to live a healthy life." Dr. Gaffney points to pharmaceutical companies for the rising costs.
I think we need to move beyond a system of copays and deductibles to a system where people can get the care they need, regardless of their ability to pay.
NBC News reached out to the 3 largest manufacturers of insulin, Lilly, Novo Nordisk, and Sanofi. The companies responding in separate statements, saying in part, anyone paying more than $35 a month for Lilly insulin can call the Lilly Diabetes Solution Center. In 2022, approximately 63,000 patients in the U.S. received free insulins. And despite the rhetoric about skyrocketing insulin prices, the net price of insulin has fallen for 8 consecutive years, making our insulin significantly less expensive for insurance plans. For Laura, she says the new cap is a start, but leaves out users like herself.
I'm lucky. I have insurance. I'm very privileged. I still hoard the dregs of my insulin vials in my tiny Washington, D.C. fridge.
Laura, still wary of the day she may run out of insulin. And up next, they say time is money. So how much do you think one night of your time is worth? For one performer, try $24 million. Before we go, the details on the star and the paycheck. And we can't go without leaving you with some good news on this Monday. So here are your 60 seconds of joy, starting with none other than Beyonce, who performed her first live show in over 4 years. That's right, it's been that long. The Grammy-winning star sang to an invite-only event in Dubai to help launch a new luxury hotel. The Queen reportedly pocketed $24 million for the 75-minute set. Parks and Rec fans were happy to see familiar faces this weekend on Saturday Night Live. During Weekend Update, introduced Pawnee employee April Ludgate, played by host Aubrey Plaza. Her iconic sarcasm was not enough because viewers also got to see her legendary boss, Leslie Knope, played by none other than Amy Poehler. And Rhode Island police are helping a 10-year-old girl's request to get this test for Santa Claus's DNA. After Christmas, a police chief received a package with evidence of a half-eaten cookie. So far, the investigation has uncovered a photo of a reindeer and Santa's sleigh, so it's going well. The chief says the investigation is still ongoing, but they do plan on formally releasing their findings, so stay tuned. That does it for us. Thank you for watching. I'm Zinclea Sama. The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.